All right, welcome back to the channel, man. This is the Man Down Podcast Network, and I'm here with another reaction, man. We got LeBron James and Michael Jordan again. So this is another video of someone. It looks like I don't know, going to tell me why he thinks the debate is a lot closer than what we give it credit for. You know, it's a lot of people on one end of the spectrum that think MJ is the overwhelming favorite to be the greatest of all time. And then it's, a growing amount of people who think he's a LeBron James, mostly millennials. And, but let me see what he got to say about it. And I give a little bit of commentary as well. I try not to make this too long. And also don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button. And hit that bell as well so you can get all the notifications whenever we go live for our podcast. And check out the podcast as well. I'll leave a link in the description so you can get to that. But let's go ahead and get started with this video. See what he's talking about.
Them about LeBron James or Michael Jordan, they have a fairly simple answer: either LeBron James or Michael Jordan. In fact, for a pretty large majority of fans, the answer they'll produce will be the former Chicago Bull Michael Jordan. But at the same time, I'm starting to see more and more people say LeBron James. LeBron James, the greatest basketball player to ever play. When you take a close look at the stats, I think the debate is much closer than one might think. It's easy to point to Jordan's undefeated finals record as an easy way out, but the argument goes much deeper than a few series that happened decades apart. Whether or not you have an opinion.
So he said one thing. He said when you look at the stats, it's much closer than we would like to say. And he also said that saying that Michael Jordan was 6-0 in the finals is an easy way out. And I'm stopping it because dismissing 6-0 is an easier way out than mentioning 6-0. Like just acting like 6-0 is not part of the criteria or part of how you're judging it is an easy way out to try to make it closer than what it is. I think it's important to mention that every time he got to the finals, that no one in his era could stop him from winning. I think that's very important. But I'm not going to ignore the fact that he played more than 6 years. So that means the other 8 years he wasn't good enough to make it to the finals. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. So, but let's put that in perspective. You have a superstar player join the league, join a team that's more than likely crappy, right? If you're the number 1, 2, or 3 pick, you're going to a bad team unless you're lucky, like Magic Johnson, to end up with Kareem in LA, or lucky like Tim Duncan to end up on the Spurs with David Robinson, right? Everyone doesn't get that lucky. So here's Michael Jordan. He's showing up, bad team. They're trying to find the right formula to fit with him, because you're trying to build a team around your superstar. Once they got Scotty in, once they got Horace in, and once they had a coach that can put all that together to put something on the floor that was a contender, their trajectory was progressing up. Every time you come in the league, you're the new guy on the block, and you have other superstars and other contending teams that are on the top. In Michael Jordan's case, it was the Pistons, it was the Lakers, it was the Celtics, and even Milwaukee Bucks with Sidney Moncrief was really good. Now, those are the teams he had to knock off the top of the hill. So you show up, there's someone at the top of the hill, you progress your team, you build your team to look like them, and then when you get in a place where y'all on the same level, y'all go at it, clash of the Titans, who's going to win. So Michael Jordan progressed. He got to the top of the hill and took down the teams that he couldn't get past before. Once he got to the top of the hill, no one could take him down. Then you have on the other end, LeBron James shows up in the same type of situation in Cleveland, and he's progressing. And when he get a team built around him that can contend and go to the finals, they lose, right? Then after that, He has a team built around him. 2 years in a row, I think he had the best record in the league, and he gets put out by Dwight Howard in the Orlando Magic, and he get put out by the Big Three Celtics the next year. And then he made his decision to go and join a uh, Miami Heat with D Wade and Bosh. Now, if you can look me in my eyes and tell me, when you look at those storylines of rise to the top, one is the easy way out, and the other one is a grind. I mean, you can't really look at me and seriously say that you can't see that.
On the matter, it cannot be denied that LeBron James is at least close. But at the same time, I think LeBron and Jordan are different, and their
They are different,
differences are truly what make them so great.
and the
But I'd be
differences do make
lying
them
if I
great.
said there weren't more than enough figures, highlights, or spectacular moments that would even put the Los Angeles Laker ahead of the former Chicago Bull.
I wouldn't say that
When you
though.
pin the stat lines of the two Hall of Famers against each other, you get no clarity towards the argument. Jordan's scoring ability is unmatched, but LeBron holds a clear edge in the assist and rebound category.
Well, let's talk about scoring versus assist and rebound. In the game of basketball, for those of you who've never played it, um, whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. The way you get the most points is by putting the ball in the hole and stopping the opposing team from putting the ball in the hole. All right. So when we're talking about statistics, which stat is the most important? Scoring, defending, assisting, or rebounding? Right. And let me give you a hint. Two of those stats are the primary stats that correlates to winning, and two of those stats are subparticles of those primary stats. And let me explain. Scoring you can do independently. You can't record assists without someone scoring. So that means if I pass you the ball, you have to be someone who has the ability to put the ball in the hole. So if I draw a double team and I kick it out to a 3-point shooter, if it's Kyle Korver, then it might go in. If it's Bill Cartwright, it might not go in. So, so, so what I'm trying to say is assists are dependent on a score. And same thing with defense and rebounding. You don't get a missed shot unless someone played good defense, and you don't get a rebound unless you get a missed shot. So rebounds and assists are dependent stats. So I'm going to put them at a category below scoring and defending. So the most important stats to winning a ball game is stopping your team and scoring buckets. And Michael Jordan was the better of the two athletes at scoring and defending. And it's obvious and it's not close, right? While LeBron always played on teams in Cleveland that seemed like they didn't have a lot of talent. And it's because when you're trying to build around someone who voids in his game, and his voids being that, he's a little bit better now, but then in Cleveland, he wasn't so good off the ball. He wasn't so good in the post. He wasn't so good as a shooter. So his strong suit is that no one can stop him from getting to the rim without a double team. And if you double him, he was probably the greatest passer on the court. So in order for him to utilize his greatest two assets, which is his court vision and passing and his ability to get to the rim, he has to have the ball in his hand. And most of the times to get a double team or to get someone to help off of a shooter, he had to be going to the hole. He'll utilize a high screen and roll. And, you got a screen or a pick and pop action, and he's going to the hole, and the screener is either popping up for a three, and then you're probably going to have some weak side help or strong side help, and it's a shooter there, and he can find them where it don't matter on the court, he can find them. So in order to use his best assets, you have to give him the ball, spread the floor. And so what does that do? If the floor needs to be spread and I'm a post player, I really can't play with LeBron. That's why Shaquille O'Neal, when he went and was supposed to be, hey, I'm entering into witness protection, right? He was supposed to be, Big Shaq witness protection. He didn't work with LeBron because he's a post player. Ben Wallace didn't work with LeBron because he's a lane clogger and he's not a shooter. So the type of talent, Carlos Boozer, when he first got there, didn't work with LeBron because he was a post player. Had to get Carlos Boozer out of there. Ricky Davis didn't work with him because he was a slasher and not a shooter. So he had to get rid of, same thing with Larry Hughes, not a shooter. He had to get rid of good players to bring in players like Boobie Gibson, Mo Williams, guys, Danielle Marshall, Big Z, guys who was like, hey, I'm just going to sit around the 3-point line and let you spoon feed me. Right. You couldn't have a traditional point guard because LeBron's your point guard. So you can't bring in someone like Chris Paul at the time, or you couldn't bring in Nash. He needed a guy who was nothing but a standstill shooter or a pick and pop guy. So when you're trying to find shooters to fit around LeBron, your shooters are not going to be other great players like or Pippen or Wade or something like that, or they're going to have to change their game to be off ball players. That's why all the post players end up shooting threes. That's why Kevin Love went from playing in the post in Minnesota to shooting threes in Cleveland. That's why J.R. Smith went from being a ball handler in Denver and New York to being a straight up shooter in Cleveland. That's why James Jones followed him everywhere. That's why Kyrie Irving got tired of playing with him because I got tired of being a standstill shooter. That's why Wade didn't work with him the first year and they lost to Dallas because they had to figure out how we're going to work with two slashers and no shooters. They had to bring in Ray Allen, Shane Battier, make Mike Miller to make it work, Rashard Lewis to make it work, all these shooters. So when you get shooters, they're not always going to be great players. And that's why Cleveland had that issue with building around LeBron.
Just looking at that alone is a testament to how both of these guys have established themselves as some of the greatest players of their respective generations. While Jordan has more accolades than LeBron at this point in his career, many people make the argument that LeBron James is the better all-around player. But then that brings up the conversation. What does the GOAT argument truly mean? Is it the player with the best accomplishments or the better basketball player? Are we judging careers or are we judging peaks? When it comes to all-around game, many people, they kind of shy away from Jordan simply because LeBron James is somebody that did it all. And
stop. All right, and that's another thing I hate to hear. That cliche of better all-around player. That's an easy way to try to tilt the scale. All right, because all around gives me the thought process that you're all around if you're all around the stat book. Like if you're filling up the stat sheet like Westbrook, you're a better all-around player. That's not true, right? When I'm thinking about all around, like I said, the most important things to basketball is scoring and defending. There's one end of the court is scoring, the other end of the court is defending. So if you want to be all around, if you're just on one end of the court dominant, but not dominant on the other end of the court, how can you be all around? All around means both ends of the floor, right? Now, I know what they're meaning when they say all around. They mean that, oh, he's scoring, assisting, and rebounding. And that's true. Neither one of those things are necessarily on the offensive end or on the defensive end of the court. That means that, hey, I'm the primary scorer on my team, and I'm also the primary distributor. So he's the quarterback and the receiver. He's the setup man and the scoring threat. Like he's read option. So if you was to get a quarterback that says, hey, look, I really don't need a running back because I run too and I pass. That's what he's saying. If that's more conducive to winning, then I think a lot of people would do that. And Michael Jordan did do that his first 2-3 years in the league. And then Phil Jackson came and said, this is not the best way to win. So the style of play that Michael Jordan played his first 3 years in the league is a a style of play that gets you a lot of stats, but it's inferior to the style of play he adopted when Phil showed up. The style of play that he adopted when Phil showed up is, instead of me having the ball, I'm going to go off the ball and I'm going to allow Scottie Pippen to have the ball. So he gave up the distributor and the facilitator role to strengthen the team by letting someone else flourish in it. It makes no sense to have a great facilitator on your team if you're not going to use them like that primarily, right? And the Lakers was able to win that way by having LeBron play point guard and having a great facilitator on their team and Rondo, and not utilize him that way. But the reason why they work is because Rondo developed a shot, so he was able to play off the ball. But that's an adjustment that Rondo made. LeBron's never made that adjustment where, hey, I'm going to adopt a new style and make that my A game to strengthen the team so someone else can have this role. He's hogging all the roles. And that's why he's losing so much in the finals, because he has a more flawed way of playing, and he's never adopted the superior style of play that Kobe and Jordan adopted at the advice of Phil Jackson. More so Kobe at the advice of Phil Jackson, but um, Phil Jackson still wasn't Phil Jackson when he showed up with MJ. So he didn't know. Nobody knew if that was going to work. Michael Jordan and Phil made that work together, and Scottie Pippen made that work together. So, like I was saying, it's good for stats, and stats is going to be the number one argument for someone like LeBron in this conversation. If you have that conversation, I think he's more in the conversation of Kobe and Wilt, and I think Kareem and Mike is in the league of their own. But if you were to have this conversation, stats is going to be what you lean heavy on. And like I said, that's just a play style that he adopted, which wasn't as conducive to wins as it was to accumulating stats.
Does it all so easily. He could play virtually any position on the court, not just survive but thrive. He has a high IQ. He's faster, stronger, and more athletic, possibly than Jordan ever was. And I'm not sure many.
That's debatable. I wouldn't say he's more athletic than Jordan or faster than Jordan. Bigger, obvious. Stronger, obvious, right? But faster and more athletic, I wouldn't say that at all. Michael Jordan ran a 4.3 at the combine. Well, not at the combine. When he was at Carolina, he got clocked at a 4.3, and that's without all the sports science that he probably had access to when he got to the league. This is in Carolina. He ran a 4.3, and athleticism, man. If you just go give that to, you know what, I'll let that
People
go.
would deny that. On the other side of the argument, Jordan was the better defender and scorer. And when it comes to scoring, especially, sure that LeBron has ever been close to being the scorer that Michael Jordan is.
Scoring is the
LeBron's
most
great
important
and an
stat. Defending
absolute
is the
monster
second.
in his own way. But the way Jordan scored the basketball, it was like art. While LeBron holds the edge in playoff assists and rebounds, Jordan's points per game is significantly higher.
You got to actually give LeBron more credit for some of the stats and the all-time stats that he hold. You know, he just mentioned that LeBron holds the assists and I think rebounds over Michael Jordan for playoffs and probably regular season as well, all time. But don't forget to add on the fact that he also is number 2 in turnovers of all time. That's interesting that he's number 2. I like to hear why y'all think he's number 2 in turnovers in the comments. I'm not going to tell you what I think, but put in the comments why you think LeBron is number 2 all time in turnovers. And I think Michael Jordan is not even in the top 15. Interesting.
To add to this, Jordan was an all NBA first team defender 9 times in his career, while
Facts.
James has only earned that honor 5 times and likely won't reach the number 9 point at any time in his career.
All right.
While I'm not a major
Defensive
fan
player of the
of
year
the
as well
NBA
for Michael
voting
Jordan.
and selection process for awards like that, I'm not sure anybody would deny Jordan's flat-out dominance and absurd defense. If you
Right.
like the regular season, Jordan also has more MVP awards, but you could make a major argument that LeBron should have so many more. Remember that voting system that I told you guys about? It's questionable
You can
at
make that
best.
same argument for
Even if you
MJ,
consider
Kobe,
career
Shaq.
accomplishments to be the main factor here, Jordan has 6 championships that some would say were heavily aided by Hall of Fame coach Phil Jackson. But while some people use that as an argument against Jordan, you could use that same argument in his defense. Because at one point, people viewed LeBron as toxic and uncoachable. LeBron James, give me a break. While some people think lay GM is a very real thing, I think LeBron James wants one thing, and that's for him and his team to be great. When it comes to LeBron James, for me, the first and most prominent story that comes to mind is his comeback against the Golden State Warriors. After going down big to start the series, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and the Draymond Green-led Warriors were arguably the best team to ever touch a basketball court. They proved this by winning.
Um, let's slow down on the best team to. Now, this is another thing that is a narrative, um, only to help LeBron's case. Um, him been the Warriors been the best team ever, led by Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the best player on the team. He's obviously a number one, but when you match him up with LeBron James as a number one, I think as far as best players, it's going to be LeBron, right? So Cleveland's number one was better than Steph, which was the Warriors number one. The Warriors number two was Klay. Cleveland's number two was Kyrie. Kyrie is equal to the Warriors number one. So if you want to go Kyrie and Klay, I think Kyrie is above their number two and probably neck and neck with their number one. Then you go to Draymond and Kevin Love at number threes. Let's call it even. One's a better defender, one's a better rebounder, one's a better shooter, one's a better passer. Right? One's probably mentally more of a leader than the other. Right? But when you look at Cleveland, at the very least, they were evenly matched with the Warriors. I think where the Warriors get the edge at is having Iguodala and Sean Livingston on their bench. Very two high IQ basketball players who are veterans who have been stars before. If it wasn't for Sean Livingston bad knee and leg injury, he was on his way to being a star when he was with the Clippers and with Q Richardson and Darius Miles and all them boys. Like Livingston was on his way if he would have put some weight on, but he was good. Came out of high school, was supposed to go to Duke. He's pretty much like the 90s version of LaMelo Ball. And he developed a really good mid-range jump shot. Right. So on their bench, but then again, the Cavs had J.R. Smith, and he was just as good as Sean Livingston. You get what I'm saying? So the teams was evenly matched. So let's say that the reason why the Warriors won 73 games and none of the teams that LeBron has ever been on could win 73 games is not because they was just so outmatched by everybody. It was the style of play that they played was superior to the style of play that anybody else played. The style of play that the Cavs played is give LeBron the ball at the top of the key, run high screen and roll, and find the shooters or get all the way to the basket. So it was either, and then when LeBron didn't do that, they just switched it on the other side and Kyrie did it. So it was like your turn, my turn. Let's make a play for everyone. So either Kyrie or LeBron was going to make a play for themselves or they're going to make a play for someone else. So they were the point and they were the assist. They just took turns doing it versus an equal opportunity offense like Cleveland, the Warriors, where anybody could score, anybody could assist. You don't know where the assist is coming from. You don't know where a shot is coming from. uh, uh, ball movement all over the place, and they played really great defense, and they had defenders at the rim. So let's stop talking like the Warriors, led by Steph Curry, was such a juggernaut over the Cavs. The Cavs was equally matched.
More games than any team in NBA history, beating out a Michael Jordan-led Bulls team for the highest win total. When James found himself trailing by 2 games in the NBA Finals 3-1, everybody had already written out LeBron James. Not just LeBron James, but his entire team. Some people, they'll tell you LeBron James isn't clutch. LeBron James isn't this. He's not that. But when the Warriors were up 3-1, it was like something clicked in LeBron.
When you're on the floor
was the only part of
in
his
the
game
finals
that he had not mastered,
and
you
you got two teams that is good enough to be at the finals, the team with the better player
killer instinct that some of
always
the
has
other
the
great
opportunity to
basketball
win.
players we had the pleasure to watch have had.
Let me say this. The reason why everyone always felt like the Bulls was going to win, except maybe their first championship against the Lakers, they might have been other underdogs. They've never won before. But after we realized and then everyone established that Michael Jordan was the best player in the league, was there ever a final series where you thought that he was outmatched? Like if you really think about the 90s, let's just talk about after Michael Jordan's first ring. Michael Jordan was the best player on the court in the finals. They always had a chance to win. We always believed they was going to win. When Michael Jordan retired, when you go to the finals, it was the Rockets. Hakeem was the best player on the floor for both of those finals. No one ever thought they was going to lose, right? When Michael Jordan came back, he was the best player on the final. Why is it that when LeBron is thought of by so many to be the best player on the floor at any given time in the finals, can he also be an underdog in the finals when the best player on the other side is Steph? Lil Steph, which LeBron's second best player is evenly matched with. Like make that make sense for me in the comments, please. Like, how is he the best is if he's consistently underdog? And I'm talking about against Lil Steph. Now, when KD came, now we got a conversation because now it's even more like, like you got to get the edge to the best player on the court. I was saying that the Cavs and the Warriors were evenly matched in that series, but they can't really be evenly matched if LeBron trumps Steph, and it just don't make sense. What's lopsided is the style of play. The style of play of the Warriors was superior to the style of play of the Cavs. The reason why the Cavs play that style of play is because their best player strives in that style. So he limits you to a style of play that you can win with, but when you face a team that has somewhat close to the talent level and the style of play is so superior, more times than not, that superior style of play is going to trump that inferior style of play, which is high screen and roll all day long. But when KD showed up, now you got a player that's more evenly matched to LeBron, and LeBron wasn't the best player on the floor anymore. KD was. So it wasn't even a contest, right? It wasn't even a contest. So you got the best player on the floor and the best style of play. It wasn't a contest. In two series, 8 games, 9 games, he only got 1. And that game was heavily officiated in the first quarter, where I think the Cavs shot like 28 free throws in the first quarter. I'm trying to say code word that they cheated to get an extra game, but I mean, it was a sweep and a gentleman's sweep. Wasn't even close. So you just explain to me how the best player is consistently outmatched. How was he the best player on Cleveland? Second best player was Big Z, and third best player was probably Mo Williams, which was an all-star. And then he plays Orlando Magic, who first best player was Dwight. And if you don't say that Dwight is anywhere better than LeBron, LeBron's trumps Dwight. Second best player was Hedo Turkoglu. Third best player was hurt, Jamil Nelson. So they had Rafer Alston starting. How could that team beat LeBron if LeBron's the best on the floor? It's because the style of play is inferior, and LeBron's style of play is inferior.
Whether or not you agree, LeBron would shut down any critics. He would go on a 3-game stretch where he would lead his team in points and assists in each outing. This would eventually lead to an 89-89 tie late in the fourth quarter of Game 7, where neither team seemed to be able to score. After a bad floater from Kyrie Irving, the Warriors had the ball on the fast break, giving them a rare opportunity for a layup close to the basket. As soon as Iggy went up, LeBron would be right there to erase the Warriors' hopes. It was one of the most iconic blocks I have ever
Great
seen.
block.
But of course, LeBron would not seal this
Great
game
block.
by himself. It took another moment from another big-time player. LeBron winning a ring in Cleveland was legendary, and it would seal his third NBA championship between two teams. Oh, and did I mention LeBron James now has a fourth, bringing the Larry O'Brien trophy to his third city. LeBron can go to virtually any team he wants, and that team is drastically better.
Stop. Another bad narrative. He went to LA, and when they had Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and all those cats, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma, they wasn't contenders. So it's hard to push that narrative to wherever he goes, they immediately are a contender, and whenever he leaves, they're immediately in the lottery. Because in order to believe that, you have to ignore a lot of different things. So let's hit that narrative real quick, and we'll finish the video. So one argument is that when he leaves a team, they're in the lottery. But if you look at it, when he left Cleveland the first time, who else left? The team was broken up. They fired Mike Brown. They lost more players than just LeBron. So it's a coaching change, and not only does LeBron leave, but other players leave as well. So if and the reason why that happens is, like I was saying, the play style of LeBron means that, look, he's going to have the ball, so we can't have post players, and we can't because we need the lane to be open and with shooters around the perimeter. So LeBron can utilize high screen and roll and go to the rim full speed and find an open shooter. So that means a post player is not going to thrive LeBron, and a non-shooter is not going to thrive LeBron. So you have to go and find big men that either can shoot and don't want to post up, or don't mind not posting up, like Chris Bosh and Kevin Love. Like, they were post players before they came with LeBron. They turned into 3-point shooters. They gave their post game completely up. Same thing with Big Z. So you need a big man, and not everybody fit that mold. You got to find a special type of big man. So when you find a big man that's a shooter that can spread the floor, it's not going to be KG, Shaq, Tim Duncan. It's not going to be the greatest 4s or 5s. It's going to be okay 4s or 5s. When you need a slash or a wing player, it's not going to be the best wing players. It's going to be shooters like Kyle Korver, Boobie Gibson, Mo Will, James Posey, Shane Battier. It's going to be those guys, right? We need to put shooters around them. So what happens when you have a big man that doesn't post and a wing player that doesn't create his own shot? He's just a shooter. What happens when you take LeBron and he goes to another team? Who are you going to run your offense through? So when he leaves teams, the team needs a whole new cultural change and whole new players. It doesn't operate without LeBron, because it was built for LeBron. So that's why when he leaves a team, the team breaks up. A lot of times the coaches get fired, and they have to bring in new people. Versus when they try to compare it, when Jordan left and the Bulls won 55 games. Well, when Jordan left, he was the only person that left. They still had Horace Grant. They still had Scottie Pippen. They bought in Tony Kukoc, uh, Pete Myers. Phil Jackson was still there. They still was running the triangle offense. There was no other change other than our number one is now Pippen and not Jordan. But Jordan wasn't doing everything for the Bulls. The triangle offense was helping the others score, and Michael Jordan got his points within the triangle whenever he wanted. They always exclude the fact that the second year the Bulls was on pace to not make the playoffs. They was playing 500 basketball, I think below 500 before Michael Jordan came back, and that was all the way up to the All-Star break. They was playing horrible basketball. So they always forget that second year when the Bulls was not, they was about not to make the playoffs. And the last thing I say about it is, so when LeBron leaves the team, when he left Cleveland, they lost players. They lost Mike Brown, new system, new players. When he went to Miami, and when he left Miami, they lost about 8 players, I think. On top of the fact, Wade having bad knees, and he knew that. That's why that was part of his decision to leave. He knew Wade wasn't gonna hold up. Wade had bad knees, and Chris Bosh had blood clots, and they, so that's what happened in Miami. And then in Cleveland, Kyrie had already left, and when he left Cleveland, Kevin Love, they fired Ty Lue. Ty Lue was gone, so a coaching change, and then they drafted like all types of rookies. Colin Sexton. They benched J.R. Smith because they wanted to play the young boys. They had Colin Sexton, Garland. Like they had all these young dudes, and they just and K Love was hurt. He wasn't playing. So, and it was a new coach a coach from college. So the team was just rebuilding. Like, hey, look, man, we had Cal Korver and all these dudes that just go sit there and shoot open threes. But now that LeBron's not here, somebody's got to be able to get their own shot. Who's gonna get their own shot? They didn't have it. The team wasn't built for someone else to be able to get a shot. LeBron was getting shots for everybody. So it's a reason why teams kind of decline, because when LeBron leaves, everybody that was brought in for LeBron's system either gets benched or leaves, or the coach is fired, and there's a whole new change, right? So you got to put that in perspective.
If not contending, because what LeBron does is he elevates the game of everybody around him.
He doesn't elevate the game of everybody around him. He gets them easy shots. Is a difference. If Kyle Korver is a 50% three-point shooter when he's open, he's going to be there all the time when he's open. And what LeBron James do is draw double teams. So Kyle Korver, what I say means, what I think elevating someone's game means is what Jordan did to Pippen. Pippen comes in, he's averaging less than 4 points a game his first couple of years. He's weak-minded because he sat out a game 7 in the conference final because of a migraine. And Michael Jordan showed you he could play through a stomach flu. But here I got this guy that's sitting out a game 7 for a migraine. That's what elevating someone's game. You come in as an average player, and when I'm done with you, you're an all-star. That's what elevating someone's game is. I don't think that joining another superstar elevates their game. As a matter of fact, I don't think Wade elevated his game when he showed up with LeBron. He was the same way. Bosh points per game drop. He didn't elevate his game, but he did adapt to LeBron's style and become a shooter. Same with Kevin Love. He was getting less rebounds, less points with LeBron, but he became a shooter. He adapted his game. But what LeBron does do is, if you're a shooter like Kyle Korver who can't get your own shot, I would get you easy shots because I'm going to draw a double team and I can pass my butt off. That's what LeBron does. He doesn't elevate stars to superstars or stars to greatness. They continue to do what they was doing before LeBron, and sometimes at a lesser scale when you talk about Chris Bosh and Love. But when you got the average players to below average players that are only shooters, yes, they get easier shots. That's not the same thing as elevating someone to greatness. That's not it. So stop saying he makes everyone better, because if you can't say he makes someone better and then boast that he makes them better, and then also boast that when he leaves, the team falls apart. Like it doesn't make sense. If I'm a leader of my house and I got kids and a wife, if I leave, my son should be able to do everything. Like if I'm a real leader, my son should be able to go out and chop wood, wash the car, fix lights, and fix anything that's broken. Like you supposed to be thriving. If I elevated you and made you better, you should be able to thrive in my absence. The fact that the team falls apart when I leave is an indictment, not something to boast about. Right? A real leader doesn't have an organization or entity that falls apart when he's not there. So let's coin it the correct way. LeBron James gets shooters easy shots or open shots. He doesn't elevate them or make them better.
I'm not saying he elevates their numbers. I'm saying that
Because
the
you can't
team
say that.
as a whole becomes a lot better. That's why when you see people talk about Kevin Love or Chris Bosh and their numbers decline,
Any team with a superstar becomes better. Phoenix just got Chris Paul. They became better. They haven't even played the game. They're already better. Any team with a superstar becomes better. And you see how he had to back and say, I'm not saying that their numbers are better, because when you go look at the numbers, their numbers are actually less. So you're not elevating anybody and you're not making them better. I was already a good 3-point shooter. The only thing you're doing is passing me the ball.
I don't hold that against LeBron James, because we saw what those teams accomplished. But at the same time, there are those fans that will tell you that LeBron's finals record of 4-6 is simply not going to cut it. But at the same time, he's made so many finals, he's made it look easy, Eastern Conference or not. He's in the West now. So what's your argument? With LeBron now having 4 wins under his belt, let's just say he gets to 6. If LeBron got to 6 championships, would you then put him above Jordan? An argument to be made that making it to the NBA Finals and losing is better than losing in the first or second round or missing the playoffs entirely. That sounds so silly to say, but again, I have to say it. For some perspective, teams that LeBron James played for have made the playoffs 14 times, a total that matches Jordan's Bulls. That being said, LeBron missed the playoffs in his first 2 seasons in the league. The largest difference so far is that James has made the finals more consistently than Jordan, regardless of his team. In 10 of his 14 postseason appearances, James competed to bring home a championship trophy, while Jordan-led teams only competed in 6 finals series. But
so, and that's the shortcut I was talking about earlier. So when you look at the progression, like I said, when a superstar first joins the league and there's a king of the hill, you have to first progress and climb that hill. When you get to the top of that hill, you have to take that king of the hill down. I don't know if you guys remember playing King of the Hill as kids. You have to fight your way up to that hill, and then when you get to there's only one king on that hill, you have to take them down. Then when you get to the top of that hill, how long are you going to stay on that hill? In Michael Jordan's case, he fought and fought and fought to get to the hill. He got to the top. He finally took down the Pistons and the Lakers. And when he got to the top of the hill, he stayed up there until he retired. Right. And LBJ's case, he climbed and climbed that hill and he got to the top and he couldn't take the king down. So he went and joined forces in Miami with someone who had already done it, and Wade. And then they climbed it, got to the top, finally won 2 out of 4, which was a super team. And then someone took them off the hill, which was Golden State eventually came in and took them off the hill. It was San Antonio first, then Golden State, right? So so once you get to the king of the hill, the consistency wasn't there. It was consistent that you was competing at the top of the hill, but it was always a different king. It was always someone taking you down, and then you have to go and join and find a new team and a new number two, a younger number two, and then you get back to the hill and take them down, and then you get taken down again. And it's just too much up and down. Where I heard someone say that, hey, too many superstars ate on LeBron's watch. KD ate, Duncan ate, Steph ate, Kobe ate. Too many people ate on his watch. Where when you look at Jordan, when he got to the top, nobody ate unless he retired. Right. So um, you got to be careful with that narrative of he got to the finals, because he took a shortcut to get to the finals. He couldn't grind Cleveland up that hill to get to the top and take some money down. He had to go to a shortcut and join a super team to get his first two rings. And then like I said, it was a continuous up and down with trading who was going to be the king. There's a different narrative than getting to the top, grinding your way to the top, getting there and staying there until you retire. Totally different.
At the same time, you could say that's all he needed. If LeBron goes on to win 2 more championships, would the finals argument go away for?
No, the finals argument wouldn't go away because the storyline on how you got your rings, like he's chasing 6. MJ wasn't chasing nobody's ring. Like, he wasn't ring chasing. He didn't say, well, I'm going to leave this team and go to this team because I need rings. Like, he just won. LeBron is saying, look, I got to orchestrate this stuff to put me in competition so I can get these rings. And he's failing a lot of times. Even when you put together these super teams, he lost 2 with a super team. He failed 6 times, right? It's a whole lot different. And if he gets to 6, that means he's at year 17 now. If he gets to, let's say he wins the next 2, he plays 19 seasons to get 6 rings. You played 19 seasons to get 6, and I got another guy who played 13 to get 6. Come on, man.
Good. All of that being said, Michael Jordan's 2-year hiatus from the NBA cannot be ignored. The Bulls could have realistically won 8 titles with Jordan, giving Jordan an 8-0 finals record. But hey, I guess we'll never know. Jordan has had his fair share of
I would play devil's advocate to that. I'm not sure if he doesn't retire that they win 8 straight. I'm not sure because when he retired, he said he was tired mentally. Not so much physically. He probably was tired physically too, but mentally he was tired. And he said when he retired, I didn't have anything else left to prove. He got 3, and he was like, I three-peated. He was like, I don't have anything else left to prove. His motivation was gone. So I don't know what his motivation. And Michael Jordan was a master of coming up with something to motivate him to play. So I'm pretty sure he would have found some type of motivation. But from his own mouth, he said his motivation was gone. And I'm not sure if they win 8 straight. I'm not sure.
NBA playoff and iconic finals moments. I mean, where would I even start? I've always thought the argument for GOAT, who is the greatest of all time, was it's just, I don't know how to put it into words because I don't think there can be a definitive greatest of all time. I feel like as basketball fans, we could have our own personal greatest of all time, but what makes Michael Jordan better than somebody like a Jabbar, better than a Shaquille O'Neal? If Shaq is the most dominant player to ever play, shouldn't he be the greatest of all time? Or
No, so words mean things. So when you say the most dominant, um, what does dominant mean? Like, because the object of the game is to win. So, would you say Shaq was the most dominant? I wouldn't. I would say he was dominant. What I would say is Shaq was the most physically dominant player. So physically, he could dominate his opposition more than anybody. But actually, Elijah Wan was more dominant than Shaq. He wasn't physically dominant, but Olajuwon as a player was more dominant than Shaq. And he dominated Shaq in the finals. He dominated Patrick Ewing in the finals. He's the only player to, not the only, but there's only 3 players in history who has won a MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year in the same year. And that's Jordan, Olajuwon, and this year it was Giannis. Shaq ain't never do that. Right? So dominating a game or dominating your opposition or dominating an era is different from being physically dominant. I put LeBron in the category of physically dominant because he is physically dominant, but he's also dominant in the basketball sense and how high his IQ is and how great he is as a passer. Right? So LeBron leapfrogs almost every other superstar straight into the GOAT conversation because of how good he is. And once he get in that GOAT conversation and it's him, Kobe, Mike, and Kareem, the only thing that is separating them is who was really the most dominant out of those guys. Well, LeBron lost a lot of times. Jordan didn't. When LeBron got to the top of the hill, he was taken down several times and had to reestablish himself at the top. Michael Jordan got to the top and never came down until he retired. It's a whole different narrative. So, yeah, like I said, he used the example of Shaq being dominant. He was physically dominant. You had to say the words that mean something. LeBron is physically dominant. Shaq is physically dominant. Michael and Kobe and KD and Olajuwon, they're dominant, period, because they dominated in a basketball sense. I didn't have to out jump, outrun, out physical, push. I didn't have to do all that stuff to get my points because I was such a good player as far as knowing the X's and O's, knowing spots on the court, being able to shoot from anywhere. My jump shot was solid. My handle was solid. My post game was solid. Like, I dominated you because there was nothing you could do to stop me from a basketball sense. With LeBron, I'm just a better athlete than you. I'm stronger than you. I'm faster than you. I dominate physically. He's in the Shaq mode. Olajuwon and Jordan and KD and Kobe are in this mode. It's totally different. Shaq, Wilt, LeBron, Olajuwon, KD, Kobe, Mike. They dominated different. One dominated physically, one dominated in all ways.
Or maybe Wilt. Are we accounting for error? Are we accounting for adjusted pace? The pace of play? There's so many different things that goes into deciding who is the best basketball player to ever play.
It's not that hard. Can LeBron shoot? No. Can LeBron shoot free throws? No. Can LeBron post? No.
Very tough.
You can't have that many holes in your game and be the GOAT. I'm going to the guy who has the less holes. Or I'm going with the guy with 0 holes. MJ.
Am I possibly taking this whole hypothetical too far?
You can't just accumulate stats on one end of the court and not be a dominant defender when the GOAT before you was a dominant defender and scorer. Like, he's not playing any defense. He's dominating one end of the court and resting on the other end.
Is ridiculous. For me, I think the players are too different to have a definitive greatest. But I'm interested.
So what is this? Minutes, points, wins. What is this stat? Triple doubles. Is this in the playoffs?
Knowing who you guys feel like
they didn't put the turnovers up there.
Basketball player of all time is, and what makes a player truly the GOAT. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss another Get Like Coop video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Okay, so good video. I like it. So my take, he asked the question. I mean, who do you think the GOAT is? It's still MJ. And what my criteria is first and foremost, who's the better player? And everything you say about why this guy is the better player, can you validate it with something verifiable, like a stat or award or accolade or winning, which is the ultimate goal. If I say Michael Jordan was the better scorer and the better defender, and I think that the scoring and defending is overall the most important thing to winning, it's kind of hard to make an argument for any other guy that is not a better scorer and a better defender than Michael Jordan. Right. So you start to go stats, the stat roll, and I'm going to ask you, accumulating those stats, how does it affect winning? You know, because I think if accumulating those stats were more conducive to winning, then more people would do it. Well, I'm not gonna say more people would do it because it's not easy to do, but what I'm saying is people like Michael Jordan and Kobe, if winning came from leading your team in points, assists, and rebounds, or stuffing the stat sheets in points, assists, and rebounds, if that was the blueprint, if that was the way to go to win, Michael Jordan and Kobe wanted to win so bad, then they would have done it. But what Michael Jordan and Kobe decided to do was be unstoppable as a scorer and be ferocious as a defender. And LeBron has decided to be okay on defense, play defense sometime, and put all his energy on the offensive end, which gave him more stats. So, you know, what do you value when you're having a GOAT discussion? Stats or winning? Man, and that's how you put it, man. Leave it in the comments. Make sure you subscribe. Until next time, peace.